Hey YouTube, Shelka04 here. Hey, do me a favor, leave me subscribe, leave me messages, comments, thoughts, suggestions, ideas, what have you. Today I want to talk about guns, and this is in the recent wake of the shooting that took place in Roseburg, Oregon. And much like everybody else, that's a sorrowful situation that never should have taken place. And it's I don't know what to say. It's just really, it's a bad deal. But the solution isn't more gun regulation. The solution is to better deal with the mental issues that we face in our country now. Why do I say that? Why do I say it's not more gun regulation? And I'll tell you, because the people who are pushing for more gun regulation, I will bet, have never bought a gun. And I say that because the gun industry in America is one of the most heavily regulated industries in the world. I guess if you want to get involved in procuring and producing plutonium, that might take it up a notch. But to say that you can simply just go out and legally buy a gun is a misnomer and a fallacy. In the same breath, you can't just wake up today and decide you're going to go and get a concealed carry permit and at the end of the day be walking around with that. How do I know this? Because, first off, I bought a gun. I bought a gun in New Jersey. I bought guns in Oregon. I bought guns in New Mexico. So I've bought guns in different states as I've lived around the country. Also, I've gone through the process of getting a concealed carry permit. That's not a pleasant process. So for a minute, let's talk about the whole gun procurement thing. If I want to buy a gun, depending upon where it is, but let's just say a general scenario is I walk into a store, I want to buy a rifle or a pistol. Now, some states have a waiting period on buying a pistol, some states don't. When I bought my pistol in New Mexico last year, there was no waiting period. I walked in, I filled out the form, 2 pages of it, and I guess therein lies your opportunity to get a gun unlawfully, because they ask you all kinds of questions about your criminal background, your drug use, your alcohol use, have you ever had restraining orders against you, blah, 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 etc., and all this kind of stuff. Depending upon how you answer them, dictates whether or not you get a gun. Now, you fill out the form. You just don't get the gun then. What happens now is the guy goes over there and gets on the phone and calls the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. And they have a hotline that this guy is able to call into and interact with a person and give that person your information from the form, your information from your driver's license. The person in Virginia on the other end of the phone at the BATF is typing all this information into a computer at the, I think it's the NCIC database. I think that's right. Basically, the government is doing a background check on you continuously, all the time. Everything you do today affects how you look in the computer tomorrow. So after all the information is conveyed from the gun shop to the guy in Virginia, the computer comes back and says, yeah, he's okay. Or no, he's not okay. But the person on the phone basically conveys back yes or no. That is how you go about buying a gun. Legally. As I said, you can lie on your forms, or you could go find, the guy down the street, or you could go find the guy in the hood and pay, $50 for a pistol that's got a broomstick for a handle and shoots sections of bolts or something. You want to buy a gun illegally, that's a whole different conversation. But the process of buying a gun legally is a hassle that I don't really think you can change and have really any effect with. Let's talk for a minute about gun shows, because I've bought guns at gun shows. Now, the perception is that you walk into a gun show, you throw down some cash, and you walk out with a gun. No, that's wrong. two different people are at gun shows. You've got a dealer at the gun show, and you've got the private individual selling his collection at the gun show. I've bought from both. I buy from the dealer. It's the same process there. Thanks to cell phones and wireless computers and all that sort of stuff, same process. I fill out the form. They call back to Virginia, look me up in the database, blah, blah, blah. Half an hour later, I get the gun. Now, if I deal with a private individual at the gun show, what's supposed to happen is we are supposed to take the gun and the paperwork over to the dealer, who will facilitate the transaction, charge you a $25 paper fee or something. But it's all got to basically be done that way. Can you go out in the parking lot of a gun show and buy a gun from somebody? Probably. Can you go out in the parking lot of a stadium that's hosting a big football game and buy a gun from a guy who's scalping tickets? Probably. Can you buy a gun from somebody who's working down at the county dump? Or, I don't know, in town? Probably. But those aren't legal, so we're not going to discuss those. Now let's talk for a moment about the process of getting a concealed carry permit, because the perception is that those people are apeshit idiots anyway. You know, get a concealed carry permit, and oh, we've got guns in public. And that's a big problem. Well, first off, as I said, you can't just sign up for a gun permit today and get it after lunch. I have a gun permit now that's issued by the state of Indiana. And even though I live in New Mexico and I'm a New Mexico resident, the state of Indiana will issue non-resident concealed carry permits. And why do they do that? Because it's a miserable process to go through that takes months. Okay. So I applied for my permit last Thanksgiving, and that's November. I think it was actually November 25th when I picked up the paperwork and started the process. I had to fill out the form. I had to justify, and that's a lot. Filling out the form is a lot different than justifying need. So if I said I needed it, I don't know, for whatever reason, may or may not have gotten it. But the justification is your issue to deal with. In my case, I wanted it because we're traveling around in an RV. I'm trying to sell solar, and solar, regardless of whether it's the retail or the wholesale value, is an item of value, and I didn't want to be at some place and get robbed. So that was my justification. I filled out the paperwork. I sent in the money. I had to deal with the state police, and I had to deal with the local sheriff. The paperwork went into the state police, but it also went into the sheriff. I had to get fingerprinted, as I said. Then I had to go to the actual sheriff's office and do more paperwork there. Then I had to wait. And I'm waiting because not only are every group, an organization that I mentioned, state police, the feds, and the sheriff, they're all doing their own background check on me. And somebody is looking over that application and writing remarks in the margin. And that takes time. Now, the other thing is that a lot of states just don't issue concealed carry permits that easily like that. And if you want to call that an easy process, then so be it. But a lot of states require you to have a certain number of hours of either a class or a class with hands-on training or some sort of training prior to applying for the concealed carry permit. In my case, because I was in the military, my DD-214, which is basically my military resume, if you will, showing my background and my history and what I've been trained in and that sort of stuff, that often will suffice as experience, if you will, in handling of a gun. So, that often works. Otherwise, I would have taken a class, and I actually think a class would be a worthwhile thing to do when we get where we're going. So, as I said, I applied for my concealed carry permit in November of 2014, and was finally in hand April of 2015. November, December, January, February, March, April. 5 months is what it took me, law-abiding citizen, to get a concealed carry permit. So it's not an easy process. I don't know how you can make that process any more rigorous than it is, as well as the gun process. I don't know how I would change that. So I don't think, getting back to the main topic, I don't think vilifying guns or legal gun owners is a solution. I think we need to look at the individuals who are doing these things and what their mental state is. And by that I mean either they could be terrorist-oriented or have psychological issues, which I guess you could say is terrorist orientation in itself. But I think we are doing ourselves a great disservice as a society by vilifying legal gun owners. Just my thoughts. Bring it on, liberals. I'm waiting for you. If you have any questions, thoughts, comments, suggestions, please leave them. And if not, please subscribe. Shelka04 out. We'll see you.